around consumption, around government hoping to, kick in consumption, hoping to ensure that people have more money in their hands, more discretionary spending. All of it's got to do with the fact that the inflation has been a big bummer for the government. It's been a big bummer for a lot of us, in fact. Vegetable prices all-time high, pulses all-time high. With September around the corner, there is a lot of buzz, Krishna, on how consumption will pan out. Mixed cues coming in so far. Some say that inflation will go down. However, if you look at the weather pattern, and we discussed this, in fact, you were on the show yesterday when we discussed impact of El Nino, perhaps a monsoon which hasn't been very, very favorable to a lot of people in south of India, in west of India. All of that could be a big dampener. How is September going to pan out? It's going to be a crucial month for the government.
Right. Though it is expected to be drier than previous months, but what we have to think of when you think of September in India specifically, we don't know anything for sure, but traditionally September is the time consumption usually picks up or even peaks in India, because we're smack in the middle of the festive season. So you've had your Ganesh Chaturthis already, sort of starting the process of festivals in the country.
Okay.
So September is when everything from cars to electronics to clothes to food, all kinds of consumption takes place, traditionally speaking. But the only thing that we have to bear in mind with El Nino affecting us is the kind of crop that we will get eventually by the end of this particular monsoon. Yes, there have been vagaries in monsoon which have affected output, and which is probably which has literally led us to where we are in terms of food inflation. The only hope here is that consumption picks up despite, irrespective of how how the crop is, how farmers are sort of dealing with the vagaries of the monsoon. If the average Indian consumer decides to go in for huge consumption, I think that will turn the tables around, so to speak, in September. But the only question is that if there's going to be that much consumption, what's going to happen to inflation all over again? So much money chasing so many goods, which means that you're going to look at inflation continuing to stay at those high levels as well. But as you're rightly pointing out, these are mixed cues for India going in to the festive season, when Indians are looking to consume a lot, but at the same time prices are high, and also that being driven by a monsoon that is really confusing India by giving it too much in one parts of India and totally taking it away from other parts of India.
Absolutely. I mean, come to think of it, the variety of monsoon that we are seeing in north versus south, Kartik, 38% lower in the south of India, way higher than what most of us expected in north of India, especially bad for Himachal, Uttarakhand. It's such a mixed sort of month, and what's going to lead up to a September, much awaited. Whether inflation will go down or not is going to be tightly watched by a lot of agencies.
So, Shweta, I think, when RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das spoke at the Monetary Policy Committee meeting last, he had very clearly mentioned that there is going to be a accommodative stand which the RBI is going to take, and there is going to be a very, very clear focus on hammering inflation down to the 4% levels. But this is, of course, a supply generated inflation. It is not a demand generated issue. So the idea is that whatever the RBI may want to do, or in the West, let's say whatever the Fed Reserve may want to do, all you can do through tightening of monetary policy is control demand.
Okay.
And it's tight enough already. I think any further tightening than this is actually going to snap out. So the idea really needs to be right now that, okay, how do we look at consumption? There are two broad buckets of consumption. There is an essential consumption, which is your food, your vegetables, your pulses, your rice, your grain, etc. And then there is your discretionary spending, right?
Yes.
So consumption on essentials will continue to happen irrespective of the prices.
Absolutely.
You may not buy tomatoes. Well, now you may, apparently the prices have come down, but you may not actually buy basmati rice, you may buy ordinary rice, you might not buy organic atta, you might buy regular atta, but
you will buy atta.
Essentials will be bought. So that consumption story is going to continue. Now what happens is, in a high inflationary scenario, you cut down on your discretionary spendings. So the middle class, the urban elite middle class, so to speak, and those higher above that, are likely to, in any case, use up their savings in the festive season to buy aspirational products which they've been waiting to buy for a while. And this is where the discounts come in. This is where the freebies come in. So other reports suggest that automobile companies are going to have the largest ever stockpile inventory of unsold vehicles, and not on account of unsold vehicles because there isn't demand, but because they expect
The
that
demand.
the demand is going to be so high that they are better off stocking up their warehouses, increasing production right now as we speak. So there is going to be a greater inventory than we've ever seen before in automobiles. There are going to be festive discounts. So that discretionary spending, irrespective of inflation, is likely to pick up in the month of September and continue perhaps till end of December. So obviously that quarter of October, November, December should see a much higher contribution through way of consumer spending than the previous 2 quarters of this year, including the one that we are in right now. But overall, yeah, essentials will continue to be consumed unabated, and discretionary spending should kick off in
I think it's a
September.
fair point when Krishna says, what happens to inflation? So much money chasing so much goods. It's going to be counterintuitive. On one hand, you want consumption to pick up. On the other hand, inflation remains a major problem in the economy.